As a kid, one of my first portable gaming anything was Nintendo DSi. Before that, I'd had like Leapfrog, whatever the heck, early 2000s kind of made for kids thing that was out there. And of course, we had a Wii because that just kind of manifested itself in every single person's house at that point, I feel like. But I never had my own like thing to actually play actually good games on. Um, and for Christmas one year, I got a DSi, and it had a camera. It was the first thing that I owned that really had a decent camera to it as well. And decent, I mean, we'll get into this. In the left here, you can see this is what the camera looks like. Um, but I never really took it outside. Sure, I took pictures of myself, my friends, in my house, right? But I never do much with it because I would play my whatever game I was playing. I would play it at home, or I'd bring it in the car, bring it with me. Or if you're going on a longer trip, I would put it in its carrying case. It would come out of its case when I wanted to play a game, and then it would go back into the case when I was done playing with it. And that was about it. I didn't really take it places and take pictures of things. That wasn't really a thing that I did all that much. Maybe once or twice. And then, in 2026, at what point is it, the DSi 15, 16, 17 years, something like this? Later, I decided I want to try and take pictures of it. Because why not? A couple days ago, I went down to Lincoln Memorial Gardens here in Springfield, Illinois, and I just happened to have my DSi in my backpack because I've been playing with it again. And I went, it'd be fun to take pictures with it. So I did. So on the left here, we have pictures that I took with the DSi, and on the right hand, we have pictures that I took with my phone. Now my phone is a Samsung Galaxy S25 Plus. So whatever camera that has, it has that. That's what it looks like, a modern phone camera. And on the left, you have Nintendo DSi cam from the late 2000s, and you can tell the difference. But yes, it objectively looks, quote unquote, bad because it's, 480p, 640 by 480. You can see down the bottom here. But I still think it looks cool. I think it looks neat. I just want to kind of go over some of the things that I saw, and I'll do it somewhat abbreviated. I've done a few takes at this point. The past footage is utterly unusable. OBS decided to eat the resolution, and also I talked for about an hour. I will try to avoid doing that this time. But this is the first picture I took, looking down one of the trails at Lincoln Gardens. And on the right here is, pretty much what it looks like in person, and the left over here is a DSi picture. And my first thought when I see this is that it almost looks like watercolors. It looks kind of like watercolors, and there's some more that kind of got me thinking about that or later on that I'll show. So it looks, it's almost like an artistic choice. I am not a photographer. I do not know what I am doing. But I feel like if someone wanted to, that was skilled enough, they could make it into an artistic choice. I think it's just kind of neat. I think it's fun. But the first big thing that you notice is, other than of course the resolution, the details way lower, is the focus. The field of view that this camera has is very low compared to what we see on the right here. My Samsung, my phone, has a nice wide field of view. You can see the trail name here on the right, that post. You can see the entire trail and the forest around it. You can see all these flowers, bluebells, all these trees. You can kind of see this like junction spot where they have a wider part of the trail where the trails meet. Where in this, on the left here, the DSi, you don't really see any of that. You just see what's directly in front of the camera. And also, you start seeing through a lot of these pictures is the sky. Whatever, I don't have the words, I don't know enough about cameras to explain this, but it basically gets washed out. It's like it can't render enough color, and the brightness is just too much for it, so it kind of blows out all the lighting that's present in the sky. On the right, you can see it's a lightly cloudy sky. It's a lot of blue, and some gray, and some white. And over here, it's just almost entirely white, just bright. For the next picture, walked a few feet down the trail. These bluebells here. I love bluebells. They are my favorite flower. I think these are bluebells. Hopefully they are, and I'm not getting them wrong. They look really nice and pretty and cool in this photo. And then the DSi over here, this is where it kind of looks like watercolors to me. It's not, perfect high res, but it looks cool. It looks neat in some way. I don't know how to describe it. But the colors look so different. On the right is a lot of different greens and blues. You can see the different, almost going into pinks in some of these flowers down here. And you can see all the different leaves and all the different browns of the leaves that are subtle. Versus off to the left, all these branches and leaves and everything all just kind of mush into a background. And you can see some, it has like one kind of blue for all these flowers, and some of the pinks. You can see some around here. It's almost like a weird dappling effect. And I do know that what little I know of cameras, that foliage is absolute torture test for especially older cameras just because of how they work. So I know that I'm not trying to say, oh, it's bad or anything. It's just interesting, the difference that you see with these pictures here. And this is looking down further in the trail a little bit. This is looking towards Lake Springfield, and again you see more of that this like dappling effect where the leaves the camera can't resolve all these detail, the leaves and the branches and everything. In fact, another good example of how narrow the focus is, at least compared to a modern camera, is on the right here you can see this big branch of this tree, and you have all this space up here, all this space over off to the side. There's looks like a bird's nest up here. On the left, you can't see any of that. It's all very focused in front of you, which I think is neat. But the lake on the right, you can tell there's a lake in both pictures, but on the right, you can kind of see some of the water. On the left, it's just completely flat. Same with the sky. In fact, all you can really tell a difference between the lake and the sky is that one line up here of coastline on the other side. That's it. And this is the lake itself. And this was one of the coolest pictures, I think, for me. Because look how different these are. This is the exact same picture, just different cameras. And the colors are totally different. Again, I don't know how to explain this. I don't know things about cameras. But whatever it does, it can't render all the colors, or what, the lighting's just not enough, or it's just getting confused because of the shadows, or whatever it is, this is so cool to me. It's fascinating seeing how blue the left is, but the right over here is just clear, and it looks like a lake scene. And again, it almost looks like a painting. The left side of it, you see some of the branches down here, and you can tell they're a dark color, and that's it. They're just almost like black, and almost have a blue hint to them. Everything is all blue here. The water is blue. The far coastline is blue. The sky is a bluish gray. And that's really neat to me. I don't know why. And it also kind of has that effect of, if you've ever seen like a YouTube video, has a lot of black coloring to it, like a nighttime video or something, or like a gameplay footage where it's dark in the game, and YouTube compression just completely eats it. I wonder if it's the same kind of thing. You can see it looks like a lot of noise. And again, I'm calling it dappling or pixelation. I don't really know what the word is for that, but I feel like you see a lot of that going on here. It just looks neat. It looks hazy. I've heard it described with older cameras as being almost dreamlike. And it just looks so cool. It takes, it's a cloudy-ish day at this point. There's a little bit of clouds going on. It's not like overcast or anything. You can see the blue up behind them. So it's a bright sunny day. And on the left, it completely makes it just look like a cloudy, almost rainy, dreary day. But not in like a cold, a lot of, blue is a cold color, but it doesn't feel necessarily like it's a cold day. It just feels like cloudy. That's just a very neat way that the camera's done that. I think this is one of my favorite comparisons out of everything here, is these two pictures, just because of how blue it became, because everything is blue. And then this is a bit of a, there we go. Bit of a confusing shot at first until I realized what I'm looking at. So on the right is, of course, the phone camera. Left is the DSi. And I think I zoomed in a little bit because I feel like the focus is less different. I mean, you can tell there's still a wider area of focus with the camera on the right, but I think I zoomed in with my phone maybe to 2 or 3 times zoom. I just thought that these pink buds just really popped in a really neat way against the blue and the green, the browns of the background. Versus on the left over here, they don't fade into the background, but they pop less. They feel like they're bigger in some way, I guess because it's just the way the camera, the low resolution will do that. I don't know how to explain it. They're less defined, of course. They just look like abstract blobs, but they feel like they're less loud, if that makes sense. They're still very much the focus, and they look different from the background. They look different from the foliage in the sky, but they just look different in a different way, and it's just neat to me. And again, you see some of that the clouds, the background, the um, the sky up here. You can see some of that blue poking through, but a lot of it looks very gray and very white and kind of washed out compared to what you can see on the right with the phone camera. I wonder if it's just it can't render all those colors, or if it's just the lighting. It's so bright that it just doesn't know what to do with it, and it can't differentiate. Again, I don't know cameras very well. I do feel like you do see a cool. It feels like the top of the image is the brightest, and then down as you get down, you see like almost like a dark, shadowy band down here, kind of mid, and up here is all bright in the background. I would love to know about how that works. I just don't know how it works. Different lake shot here. Some of these photos are slightly out of order, I feel like. I had a... Where's the bench picture? There we go. Yep, there's the bench picture. It's just a picture of a bench because maybe having a little bit less foliage as much would be a bit easier for the camera. I wasn't quite sure. I just wanted to see how it looked. And you can see some difference, but also how similar it looks with this. I feel like maybe because there is less foliage overall, maybe it had an easier time with the image. I don't know. But you can read this text just fine. You can read all these words. You can even tell the A Lincoln signature over here. But what is neat, though, on the right, you can see A period Lincoln period. You can see the period between A and L, but you can't really see it on the right. Maybe that's it right there. It's just neat what detail does and does not come through. I think that was a good image of explaining that because it's an easy thing you can see. There's no second. It looks like there's no second period on the left, and also even the dot in the I in Eileen. It's there, but it looks oddly fuzzy compared to everything else in the text. Now this was an image. Whoops! It'll sometimes try and not scroll. There it goes. This was a close-up I got with my phone camera just because I thought it looked cool. Whereas this is the comparison shot I was trying to get. On the right, you can tell what I'm trying to take a picture of. You can tell I'm focusing on this, whatever this flower, bud, dried out flower thing is, whatever that is. You can tell that's what I'm trying to focus on. And of course, you can tap the phone screen. It'll autofocus whatever onto the subject. Versus on the left, you can't quite tell it's what I'm looking at because everything's so, it feels vaguely out of focus and everything has that haze applied to it. Not applied, but that's just what the resolution does to it. But also, what I think this image shows very, very well is the parallax. So on a phone screen, if you hold your phone up, I'm left-handed, but I use my phone in my right hand because it's just how things are set up with software and hardware, so it's just easier that way. We live in a right-handed world, unfortunately. So, when I pick up my phone, take a picture, the shutter button is under my right thumb. So the cameras, of course, are now on the top left of the rectangle that is your phone. So that is opposite what it would be if you have a DSi. If you look at the DSi, if you open it like you're going to play a game or whatever, the camera is on the lid, it's on the top right. And I feel like we're all very used to taking pictures with phones now. We all kind of, even if you don't consciously know where your camera is, most of the time, not always, sometimes it's very easy to get to the camera, but weird. But most of the time, you know how to use that camera and you kind of know how to aim your phone to get a picture you want. With the DSi, though, the camera is so far offset up in the corner, and you're holding the device that's much, actually, taller than a phone would be if you hold it sideways. And you're looking at the screen on the front of the device. The camera's offset way away. So you can see that in this image on the right, I got it pretty well centered. On the left, I couldn't quite do that. Partly because of the parallax of where the camera actually physically is. You can see that it's focused, somewhere over here versus what I was looking at is over here. It's the parallax, but also a challenge that I encountered with the DSi is that it's a screen from the late 2000s. It's sunny out. Sure, it's backlit, but it's not that great. Think about how bright a modern phone screen is. For a personal comparison, I have my S25. If I'm watching YouTube in bed or whatever, I have to turn it almost as low as it will physically go because any brighter is too bright and it almost hurts when you're in a dark room. My old S9, you could turn it up too bright, no problem. It would kind of start to hurt, but you had it was less bright. So you could have it up the slider, you could turn it a higher brightness and it wouldn't be as painful to look at when it's dark. I mean, the difference between how much my old phone and my new phone light up the room when I'm watching something or just having it on is insane. We don't realize how nice and bright displays are these days. We've all just gotten so used to it, I think. Versus the DSi where, yeah, I couldn't see this picture. When I was taking this picture, I was taking it completely blind. I could not see what I was looking at all. So with the parallax and not being able to see the screen, I had to freehand it. And I'm not used to where the camera is on it, so it came out interesting. It was one of those weird things that I hadn't really thought about. You kind of think about it a little bit with your phone. It's just what we're used to now, but with the DSi, it's different, so it had a different result, and I just thought that was really neat. This one was just pictures of a flower. My phone camera decided to not focus, so there's not much really to look at here. I think it did a better job with the DSi because there was less, yes, it's all greenery, but there's less overall foliage, so I think maybe it looks a little bit better. I didn't struggle as much with that. And this is an example of just how much it can struggle with a lot of greenery and trees and everything being around. Look how smeary this looks. But it's not necessarily bad. It kind of looks like watercolors. This is really cool to me. What's also interesting is how not terribly bad it did with the sky. I mean, it's not great at all. But you see some of the blue. You see some of that haze. It's not as hazy looking. It's still very hazy and dreamlike looking. But you are starting to get some better rendering of the sky for whatever reason. I think because in this shot, the sun is kind of behind me. So not looking toward the bright part of the sky. That's my best guess. I don't know. But it was a neat difference, and it really does show you how older cameras kind of have a problem with nature photos like this. Not to say you can't do it, not to say they can't have a cool effect, it's going to look very different. More bluebells because I love bluebells, and I think this might have been another shot where the sun was right behind me, glaring into the screen. I could not see the screen whatsoever, which is why these look so different, I think. Whoops. And also what I found interesting is how that's a better comparison, I think. I really couldn't get the same framing and angle at it that I did with my phone. But the way that the bluebell flowers, they look like they're reflecting, like they're shiny or something, because of how the light is coming back into the camera. Again, I don't know how to explain that. I don't know what phenomenon that is, but I think it's really, really cool just how it's like they're glowing or something. Also, the green is so different too. Look how different these greens are on the right versus the left here. The left is almost like a forest green, not olive, not drab or anything, but definitely looks different. Versus on the right, it's more that natural green, if that makes sense. Again, don't know why it does that, but it does, and I think that's very neat. And also with close-ups, I do notice that these closer-up pictures tend to work better. Again, I'm saying this a lot because I think that's just what's happening is that because there is less, there aren't hundreds of tiny leaves to see everywhere. I mean, there are leaves on the ground, but there aren't a bunch of green leaves everywhere. And, I'm not taking a picture of a whole tree. It's just some leaves in the background and a plant as the main subject. So it's not having as hard a time as, the previous picture where, I mean, please stop doing this, Windows. Please, I beg you. Yeah, it was looking like this, where it's almost an entire mess. This, you can actually kind of discern individual plants and leaves and things. This is a very blurry picture. Again, I couldn't hold it steady. I couldn't get a good shot of things because it was so hard to see the screen. And also, I think this is an effect of how what it's like to take a picture with a DSi or a DS or anything like this. Is that think about how we're used to taking pictures now with a phone. I mean, maybe you have a camera, whatever. But with a phone, you're probably pretty used to, the motion that is required to press the shutter button and not shake your phone too much. I mean, sure, yes, we all take blurry photos. I do it all the time. But I feel like we've gotten used to it to a point. I mean, I'm trying to think back to, when phone cameras were kind of new, and perhaps that motion was not as ingrained as it is now. I will bet you that people had just generally blurrier pictures. That's my guess. Totally just pulling it out of my brain. Same with a camera. We're all pretty used to, having your finger on the shutter button and the motion that is required to press that shutter correctly without shaking the camera too much. Whereas this, where I can't tell where I'm aiming, I'm thinking very hard about trying to aim and get a picture. And sure, pressing the shoulder button, the right or the left button of the DSi is normal. I mean, you do it all the time when you're playing a game. But that motion required to take a picture, while similar to a shutter button on a camera, is still different feeling a little bit than what we might be used to. So I feel like the motion of holding a DSi, form factor while hitting a shoulder button and not just nudging the system back and forth a little bit, that might be a thing that happens. I don't have any way to prove that. I'd have to, record me taking a picture a whole bunch with the DSi. Maybe that would be a good thing to look into. I just thought it was very, very neat. Again, all this is just because I thought it was cool and I wanted to play around with it. That's all it was. This is another favorite photo of mine. Is this bridge here by the Nature Center. And I think this picture is so cool to me because it's almost a good way, not a perfect way, it's not apples to apples, but I feel like it vaguely gets across what it is like to be nearsighted. I am very nearsighted. I can't, at a distance, see objects very well at all. And of course, it's not a perfect comparison by any means, but I feel like you can kind of get a point across, kind of. And for an example here, I'm taking off my glasses. I'm now currently looking at the right picture, and it actually looks worse than the left picture with my glasses on. My eyes are that bad. Um, but the difference in how you can see detail or can't see detail somewhat to something of an extent feels similar to what it's like to look at an older photo like this. You can't see the detail. You can see things are there, but you can't see what those things are. I think that's neat, and I think it somewhat, kind of, just barely gets across that feeling. I think if I zoom in here a little bit to kind of generally get what the FOV of the camera was, of DSi was. That looks about right. On the right, you can see all these details. You can see individual leaves. You can see this chicken wire kind of mesh wire that is the handrails. You can see the boards individually for all of them. You can see these shadows here. You can see the distinct trees in the distance. Versus with this left-hand picture, you can make out individual trees that are closer to the camera, and also larger ones as well. But once you get further back, it's just a brown blur mess. You can't see these things. All these boards, some of them you can see individual boards, but some you cannot, especially these brighter boards up here. You can't see, you can kind of make out the wire mesh, but nowhere near as easily. I personally, looking at this picture, could not see that when I took my glasses off. But you also can't really see these shadows. Part of that's the lighting, because it's, again, older cameras and lighting don't play well. You almost can't see these shadows. You can kind of see the shadows right over here, and kind of the step down, there's a step to it. You can kind of see the shadow over here, versus over here, if I zoom in, you can perfectly see the step down to the handrail, and the step down to that shadow. It somewhat gets across what it kind of looks like. At the very least, maybe to look at a screen and look at this image. It's not perfect, but I think there is something you could make something out of that somehow. I'm not smart enough to, but it feels like you can kind of get a point across. This is looking the opposite way on the bridge. Same kind of deal. You are seeing a lot of the camera struggling with all these different trees and leaves everywhere, and also the light is reflecting. This is looking almost directly west, vaguely, and the sky is entirely blown out. The sun is probably off up to the corner somewhere up here. Excuse me. So it's kind of hard to see what you're looking at in the sky, and everything is very, very bright. And this creek right here is just the reflections. They're just pure white. That's all it is at this point. Versus on the right-hand side, you can see, yes, there's reflections, the glint of everything. There's some algae and stuff growing. But you can see even up close below the water down here, you can see leaves below the water down here. There's not enough resolution. It's too blown out. You can't see that. It's just neat what you can and cannot resolve with this camera. And more pictures of the background looking off the bridge. Some other stuff looking up close at some flowers and things. Not a whole lot to say with these. I don't want to spend a ton of time looking at every single. I think I took 21 pictures in all, I believe, with a DS. This was interesting. I was showing some pictures. It's actually kind of funny. I was showing pictures to someone else. This is one of the couple like the wood statues they have just around Lincoln Gardens. On the right, it looks cool. It's this cool gnome wooden thing. On the left, it kind of looks terrifying. It looks like something out of a creepypasta story. I don't know what it is. I was talking with people trying to get to what makes this. Why does this feel so eerie? My best guess is that I was talking about how dreamlike old cameras can be, how fuzzy they are and hazy they are. It feels kind of dreamlike, so it feels almost supernatural, I guess, in the way. Something feels weird. It doesn't feel. It's like uncanny valley. It doesn't feel quite right. I also am willing to bet there's something to do with, humans, as humans, for those of us who are sighted, like, being able to see is so fundamental. When you remove being able to see, we're at a kind of like a heightened alert level, right? We're kind of uncomfortable. Something's not right. So when things aren't as clear, maybe we make things up in our heads a little bit, right? Kind of like when you're, scared of the darkness. Maybe you're not scared of the dark itself. You're scared of what you cannot see in the dark. Maybe the same thing's going on here. I also heard a suggestion from someone I was talking to that with the right-hand picture of my phone, you have a wider field of view, so you see more context that you are in this sort of garden area. This is the thing on display. On the left, you still get that. You still have this rope around it. You can see pathways and things, but there's less context overall to help inform that for your brain to when you look at it. And also on the right, you have a bit more, I think, like a sense of depth. You can see how far things are from the camera a bit more because you have more context, you have more resolution. I guess think the term is like depth of field or something like that. I don't quite know, but it feels like there's more depth you can make out in this picture. Partly because of the focus, partly because of the resolution, and just in general. So on the left, this gnome troll thing, the statue looks closer to you because it's a narrower focus, so it's larger in the image. And also there's less depth going on. It's kind of hard to see how far things actually are. So perhaps if you were to zoom in a little bit, maybe this feels a bit closer, perhaps? I'm trying to get it just right. This is about as good as I can get. Maybe it's placebo. It feels a little bit more off, but not quite. This still feels like a normal picture. On the left, just it feels weird, and I don't know how to describe it. It feels like something out of an old creepypasta. That's just what it is. Also, another idea before I move to the next picture is also the eyes. Her eyes here on the right, you can see all this detail and everything. You can see each bits of wood, the screws and everything. You can see these wood rounds that make up her pupils. With this, it's all just kind of dark and messy. You can kind of see the detail. You can see if you zoom in, there is detail there. But when you're just looking at it, her eyes just kind of look like black holes, and that's kind of creepy looking. So it's just a neat way that this, it's almost like analog horror or something, I don't know. It just looks like, to me, something I would find in a creepypasta video on YouTube from 10 years ago. This is another one of these statues I got hanging around. Cool dude. This one's not as creepy, and I cannot explain why. I have no idea why, but it feels less eerie. There's still some amount of this feels weird, uncanny valley, but nowhere near everything else. And this is a better picture of, there is some better detail you can see in here, but also how, as you get farther from the camera, his head is less detailed, things like this. His foot, though, you can see each plank of wood and the screw holes and everything as well. But when you get further away, it's just kind of, it's more and more blurry. This is me just trying to get some color differentiation. It's just one of the Abe's Hat Hunt signs we have around Springfield. This is a good example of how low the detail really is in this picture. You can read Abe's Hat Hunt. You can tell that it says something down here, but you can't tell what it says. If you think about it, you can come up with, oh, it says Springfield. But the visit, you can see over here, if I zoom in really close, visit Springfield, Illinois, hashtag visit Springfield. You look at this, it's just, it almost looks like lines. You almost can't even tell there's text above Springfield. It looks like you can't even tell it says visit up here. And, this is completely unreadable. It's just neat seeing how, it's a good example of what it looks like to have a lower detail. And also the colors that it did. Everything feels a little bit like pink on the DSi's picture, versus in my phone picture, you can see there's a little bit of water spots on the image, on the poster. You can see that it's actually more like a blue hue, I think, to it, whereas on the left, it's almost like a pink hue. I don't know why, but it just does. And I didn't get any pictures of the DSi. I turned it off at this point. Just some cardinals, birds I found. Absolutely beautiful bird. I love these birds. I know it's the most basic bird to like, but I love them. I think they're cool. And then this is in my car. I got back into the car, and I was trying to get some pictures of my steering wheel, and whoops, there we go. If I zoom in here, you can see on my phone camera, there's color differentiation between my the wheel itself and the airbag over here. That's because of yours truly. I have had it replaced. I got in a car wreck once, so you are seeing much newer plastic here than the part that I hold on to. It gets dirty and everything. And you can kind of see that in the DSi's picture, but it's obvious, but it's not as obvious. And as you get further away, if you zoom in with the phone, you can see that kind of texturing that the plastic, the dashboard has, versus the DSi. You can't tell at all there's texture there; it just looks smooth. You also can't read any of the gauge cluster or anything. You can't tell. I mean, because it's out of focus with my phone camera, you can't see the brake. I have a parking brake on. You really can't read it, but I'm sure if it was in focus, you could. Versus here, it just looks like a red light. Just some good demonstrations of how that detail will change. And that's really about it. This is just pictures that I had taken while I was out. That's about it. There wasn't a whole lot of point I wanted to make. I just wanted to try it. I just wanted to see what would happen. And part of the idea I got from the YouTube channel YewfNet, YewfNet. They're pretty cool. They had a bunch of videos recently about like dedicated devices and old camcorders and things. Just trying to be more in the moment than using a phone to take pictures. Phones are great. They're awesome. They're super convenient. You can take beautiful pictures of them. With this, if I pull up the cardinal picture here, I can only get these pictures because my phone does a 10 times optical zoom. With my old phone, I could not have zoomed in like this and had it look this decent. This actually looks pretty good. I could not have done that. That's the convenience of a modern thing. But it's your phone. You pull it out, take a picture, and you look at a text or something. You look at a notification. And I also feel like with a lower quality camera, because it won't look quote unquote as nice, I feel like there was less pressure to not necessarily, not trying as hard, but you're not trying as hard, I guess. You're not trying, oh, it's got to look perfect, it's got to look great. It's just, I'm going to take a picture of a thing that I find that's neat and it looks cool, and the picture's going to look however it looks. Which I feel like helps make you more in the moment, or think more about those pictures. It's almost like film, where you have a roll of 30 some pictures in your film roll, and you think about each picture you want to take. Well, what do you want to share with somebody? What do you want to remember? And it feels more like it feels more intentional than just pulling out your phone, take a picture, and you put it away or whatever. You play with your phone, something. It just feels like it's more of a thing you do, and it helps. At least me felt like I was a bit more trying to figure out how to I feel like I was more present in the moment, taking pictures with a dedicated device rather than dedicated, I say, with a DSi. It's a handheld game console. Um, but because I have a thing that I'm taking pictures with specifically, not just the phone that does everything, it felt like I was more there. Hopefully this is interesting. Hopefully it was fun. Hopefully it's enjoyable to listen to me ramble about the cool pictures I took with a 15-year-old game system. Thanks for watching.